Cass here, and today I'm going to share a quick little bonus tutorial with you. And in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to add content to your website template and make it look good. So what I mean by that is sometimes you'll have more content than what the template example comes with. And sometimes you'll have less content than what the template example comes with. So I want to show you how to make that more or less content situation look good on your website, no matter which way you go with it. So I'm going to flip my screen around and I am going to give you a 3-step process for how to add your content and adjust it so that it looks like it was made to be exactly that amount of content for your website. Okay, let's dive in and let's get your website template looking like it was made for the amount of copy that you have in your business. Now, we're on one of my website template restyling clients' websites, and she gave me permission to show you this example because it's the perfect example of what I'm talking about. So I want to make sure that you know how to fix the problem when this happens. You see this big white gap here after the text but before the button? It looks a little awkward, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen to you, that your text isn't smaller than what we built into the template or bigger than what we built into the template. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you 3 steps I want you to follow when you're adding content, and then I'm going to show you how to tweak the design of your template in order to make it look good, whether you have more copy than what we've offered or less copy, or you've decided to change the layout entirely. So the 3 steps that you should follow in this order when you're adding your content to your Show It template is 1, add your copy first, okay? So you're going to add all of your text into each canvas and all of the different spaces, right? You're going to add your headline, your subheadline, and your body copy into the spaces provided for you. And it's okay if it's not enough. It's okay if it's too much. That's no problem. We'll get to that in the final step. The second thing I want you to do is to add your images. So if there's an image on that canvas that correlates with the content that you're adding, you need to make sure you get the image added. And the biggest thing about that is that you'll need to resize an image every now and then in order to make it fit. Or if you don't have an image that applies and you can't find one that would fit in that spot, you might need to remove the image to make that section make more sense, okay? So step 2 is to add your image. Then step 3 is to resize everything at the same time, okay? So I'm going to show you this example when you have less copy than what was built into the template, and then I'm going to take you to another sample page and show you how the process works when you have more copy than what was built into the template. Okay, so this one first, let's fix up Tara here. You can see that this is her final copy that she's going to use on her website. Okay, so there's nothing else that's going to be added. So the first thing we want to do is decrease the size of the text box, okay? We just want it to be the size that it needs to be. We don't want all that extra empty box hanging down below the content, okay? The next thing is to move up this button. So I'm using I'm holding down Shift as I select each of these items, and then I am going to drag this up while holding Shift to keep it aligned on this left side and then move it up closer to the text. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do is resize the image so that it matches, because it's just as bad to have this big blank white space underneath as what it is to have it up above the button. Okay. So now I'm going to take the image and I am going to just resize it here. And I'm going to give it a little more space below the button. You see how it has a little bit of extra space at the top with the headline? I want to give it about that same amount of space below the button. Okay, so that looks about right visually. I'm a very visual person, and so I just align things by eye. If you need to do the math, you can absolutely go in and go into your size and position panel, find out like how wide things are, how tall things are, do the math and make it perfect. If that's your style, if you're very type A, great. I love that about you. I wish I was more like that, but I just do things by eye. Okay, so the final thing we have to do is resize this white box, okay? Now, we have a very specific amount of space up here at the top, and I want to make sure that I get the exact same amount of space below it, because when you're framing a photo, it makes a big difference. So I'm actually going to do the math on this one. I know that this box is 15 pixels, or this space is 15 pixels higher than the image. And I just know that because I built the template, so I know it, right? I want to make sure that I get the same amount of 15 pixels below the image. So I clicked on the white box and I'm looking at the size and position panel. And I know that if I move this down, I'm changing the y-axis, okay? So let me do that again. You watch this right here. Right now it's at 251. If I click my down arrow to move the white box, it changes the y-axis, okay? So it went from 251 to 254. I'm going to move it back up so that we stay in the right place. If I now look at the image, the y-axis on the image is 266. So that tells me, okay, 15 pixel difference between those two. That's how you will figure that out with your website template. Hint, hint, if you're on the Tegan template, it's 15 pixels. And now I know that I need to get 15 pixels below this photo as well. So how do I do that? Well, I just do it with a little bit of simple math. The height of my image is 438 pixels. So if I need 15 pixels above and 15 pixels below, that means I need a box that is 438 plus 30 pixels. So I need a box that is 468 pixels tall. And I can very easily create that. I already have my 15 at the top. If I just come and I select the white box, I can now type in 468 pixels and you'll see that it created exactly what I wanted. Okay, it took the space off of the bottom and brought the box up to that 468 pixel mark. Now I have 15 pixels above and 15 pixels below. My content looks better, right? Like it looks more centered and more intentional without a big white gap underneath it. The only thing I might consider doing now is whether or not I need to change this space right here, because moving that white box up means that this gap is bigger. And because I am a little bit fussy about these kinds of things, I am going to move it up a little bit, but I'm going to just do it visually. I don't feel like I need to do any kind of math. So I'm just going to drag it up to be about the same amount of space between the bottom of this button and the start of the white box. I want that same amount of space between the bottom of the white box and the start of this next row of images, okay? So I just moved it up a little bit. Now I know that the height of this tan panel is 822 pixels. And so that tells me that I need to change the height of my canvas to 822 pixels. Okay, now it's all perfectly aligned. We have the right amount of space between each of the boxes and no big ugly gap hanging out between the content and the button. Okay, so as another example, I'm going to take you to a second version of this page and add a little bit more content so that you can see how it would work on the other end of the spectrum. Okay, so jumping back here, this is what I originally had, right? I am going to select all of the copy, if it will let me. I think it froze. There we go. Okay. I'm going to select all of her copy here. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm just going to paste it again. So I'm going to double the amount of copy that she has in this box to give you the example of having more copy than what is created for the template. Okay, so now you can see this copy extends far below this box. Okay, so we are going to fix that. So first things first, I'm going to select this button, because before I can decide how big this white box should be, I need to know where this button is going to end. So I've selected all the components of the button, and I'm just going to drag it down while holding shift so it stays on the left aligned. And then I'm going to make sure that I resize my text box so that it's the appropriate size for my text. Okay, now you can see I am extending off the edge of my canvas. So I'm going to come here to this little dragger, slider, whatever you want to call it, and drag that down just to give me some room to work. Okay, I'm also going to do the same with this one so that I can see where that white box ends when I'm done. Okay, now I need to bring the image down next. When you're doing something like this, you can resize your image to whatever size you want it to be. And once again, I'm trying to make sure that there's enough space at the top and at the bottom. But because I've now made this image so tall, it looks a little bit awkward. It looks a little bit too tall, right? So I have two options. I can either bring it over a little bit. You don't want to get too close to that text. You still want a nice area of white space between it. That's one option. But to me, to my brain, it still says, this is a little bit awkward, right? So my other option would be, I'm going to Command Z to go back to the original size. My other option would be to break this from one image to two images, okay? And that's what I'm going to do here. I am going to just change the size of this a little bit. So I'm going to make it a little shorter. Look I like the composition of that image better anyway. So I'm now going to hit Command C to copy it and Command V to paste it. We'll see if that actually did what it was supposed to. I don't think so. Oh yeah, it did. There's a second one. Now I just hold shift and I drag it down. Now I want the space between the two images to be my priority as I'm changing them. So I'm going to put it where I want it, and then I select both images and drag them down a little bit. And I'm okay with the fact that it drags a little bit closer to that image, as long as I still have a pretty decent amount of white space there. Because if a photo bumps up against an image too closely, it gets hard to read. So we're always looking at readability. We're always looking at having that little gap. In the design world, we call it a gutter, okay? It's literally a gutter between the columns of content, okay? Now I change the white box. So with this one, the math gets a little bit more complicated. So I'm just going to eyeball it for a second here. Now, if I wanted to, I could literally do the math and I say, okay, my y-axis is at 251. I know there's 15 pixels of space right there. This one is at 266 and it's a height of 326. So it's going to be 326 times 2 plus what's the gap here, and then yada yada, add it all together to find out how much or what height this white box needs to be. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of that with you. I'm sure you can figure it out, or you can do what I just did and eyeball it a little bit. Okay, now our photos and our content align a little better. And just to kind of change things up and make sure that I'm giving you the full kind of preview here, I'm going to just quickly swap out the images. Let's see, Tara's photos. We'll just do a second version of her laughing. Oh, I like that one too. That's such a good photo. She's so photogenic and, okay. So this is what I would do for a section that has more copy than what I intended it to do. Once again, once I've completed resizing the white box, I want to look at the size of the canvas and make sure that it has the right gap between it and the next one. So that looks about right in that tan space. Again, I'm eyeballing it, and the height of that one is 1061. So I'm going to click on the canvas and change the canvas height to 1061. Okay. So that's how you do it. That's how you work with more content or less content than what the template provides, and how you make adjustments to your design in order to keep things looking great and looking like it was created specifically for the copy that you wrote for your website. Okay, I hope this was really, really helpful. Now, remember the 3 steps. You're going to add your copy first. You're going to add your images and or remove your images second, and then you are going to resize things to make the design of it look intentional. All right. Okay. If you have any questions, problems, considerations, etc., please don't hesitate to email me at support@lovelyimpact.com, and I will answer any of your questions about your template or deal with any problems that you're having. And I am so excited to see your finished website.